All right, guys. So I'm going to start by just building what we had last, just so we don't have to wait on the tasks if there are a lot later. And let's look at our to-do list. So first thing we need to do is we need to fix the spacing of things in the me view. So we'll see that in 1 second, right here. Oh, you know what? I actually did it and did not forget to undo that. So to do that, what I actually just did is I went to for the me view. Just go to inside the scroll view, make sure you put a V stack, okay? And in that V stack, put a spacing of 0, okay? And then inside of that is the for each. So that's it. That should take care of that. All right. Sorry, I did not mean to not undo that. So that's how you do that, okay? The next thing we need to do is we need to create something called like a truncated version of the recipe post. So let's go over to structs and enums and classes. And we had started creating it, okay? We're going to call it trunk_recipe post. So let's assume you haven't created that at all yet. I couldn't remember if I had that in the last video. So I'm going to copy what I kind of created in advance, and let's look at it. So I just want to store the ID, the title, and the description, okay? And I want to have one property to let me turn it into a dictionary immediately. So I'm going to save that. All right, and the reason we're doing that is because now, previously, what we had going was, if you looked at each user, okay, each user, so a lot of the, I apologize if you're using this database, okay, but I'm going to end up deleting all the users from here at some point. I'm not going to do it yet, but, so for instance, for me, what you see here is that I had my name, my email, my password, and published recipes, and it was a list of the UIDs. But what I'm actually going to need is a list of the truncated recipes, because I want to be able to just load myself and immediately have just the general details about each recipe. I need the ID, obviously, so I can grab the picture, but I also want the name, and I also want the description, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a modification. I changed my mind about what I want here. Instead of putting this and this and this and this, I'm just going to have the picture and the name and description. That's it, okay? And so that's how that view is going to look like. And I want to have all that just from calling for the user. I don't want to have to call for recipe information. I want to just call for this user right here, and I'll get that in there. Okay. So the next thing, so that sets up the trunk recipe post. Okay. So we'll get rid of that. Okay. And then the next thing it says, so from now on, I left myself some notes. So from now on, we're going to store the published recipes as an array of truncated recipe posts instead of just an array of the IDs. Okay. So now we need to add a title attribute to the actual recipes as well. Okay. It's something I had wanted to do. If I add it there, then I need to add it here too. So it's going to say, title. Okay. Title. Good to go. All right, and that's good as well. So we need to find a way to add a description and title on the add new post page. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the new post view again, okay? And we're going to add something new here. We're going to have a new, new state var here. And this one's going to be show review sheet, okay? And it's still going to be false as well. All right, and then what I'm going to do is that submit button no longer is just going to straight up submit it. From now on, that submit button is actually going to toggle. Let's go ahead and minimize some of these things in here, okay? Too much to look at, Okay. I don't even know what that was. Let's see what it doesn't like in here. Ah, yes. So everywhere where we had recipe posts previously, now we're going to need to have a title here, okay? So right now, I'm going to give it, actually, let's go ahead and create what we need there. So just like we had steps and we had ingredients, we're going to need a new state var called title. Oh, no, I'm going to call it, I'm going to say new recipe underscore title is equal to nothing, okay? That's the default value. So now this one's going to be self.new recipe dot title. Okay. And then I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and close that up again. So please select an image from picker. I'm going to close those things all up too. And we'll look for the submit recipe button. So submit recipe. Okay, so here's the submit recipe button. What we actually want to do now is I'm going to take everything that was in that submit recipe function, okay? Everything in there, I'm going to grab it all, and I'm going to create a new function. I'm going to use it here before I write it out. It's going to say submit. Let's see, submit recipe. Okay, and then I'll go down to the bottom and I'll just create it. Okay, let's say func submit recipe. Okay, and I put all that stuff in there. But let's go back to where we had it. It's going to be self dot. When it does actually get used eventually, it's going to be self dot. Okay, and instead what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to have this button. It's going to display dot sheet. Okay, and let's find where else we use dot sheet. So dot sheet. Okay, so there we go, dot sheet. I'm going to take all that information, I'm going to put it up here with the button. Okay, dot sheet, but then I'm going to grab everything that was in it and I'm going to get rid of it because I'm going to start a new sheet. This one's going to just say text. This is the review page, okay? And this button now is just going to say, well, the sheet is going to be linked to the show review sheet, okay? And then this one is going to be self.show underscore review sheet dot toggle, okay? So now, when I run this, let's see what we get. I'm pretty sure we missed somewhere else where we used recipe post. But we'll find out. Yes, that was another place where we needed to have the titles there, okay? So, I'll just give them a bunch of random titles. Now I'll try to run it again. And so now when we try to submit the post, it's not actually going to submit them yet. It's going to show us our review page. So we come here, submit recipe. Looks like nothing's happening, right? Well, let's go figure it out. Submit recipe. Okay. So we'll just say go to true. Okay. Let's see what we got. Alright, we hit play. We hit the plus, and then we'll say submit recipe. Let's see what it does.
Okay, and so we can fix that by grabbing this dot sheet, and we can actually just put it where we had the other sheet for the show image picker. We'll put it down there, and it'll still cover the entire page. We just got to make sure that we did not lose the show review sheet as the bindable that is essentially controlling it. So we'll save it, we'll run it, and let's take a look at what we got. Everything should look just as we wanted it now. Okay, but what we're going to do now is we're going to start setting up the modify recipe post. Okay, so let's go over here and let's say for reusable views. Actually, this is not going to qualify as a reusable view. This is just going to be a brand new view, and it's not quite a tab either, so it just gets to hang out in this hierarchy up here. Okay, so we'll come here and we'll say new file. We'll say SwiftUI view. We'll say modify recipe post. Okay, we'll say create. All right, and then let's just think about the things we're going to need in it. We're going to need a way to view the image. We're going to need a way to review the steps and the ingredients and the title and the description. Okay, so we're definitely need a VStack as the parent for this entire thing, okay? And then on the top, we're going to need an HStack, okay? And this will eventually have, say this will contain the images, okay? And then for now we'll say dot frame height, let's just say 80 for now, okay? And then the next one underneath it, we'll put a spacer, okay? And then next up we will have, underneath that, we will put, so that spacer is okay for now. But next we'll put up a text field, okay? Okay, and this one is going to be, what we want to do essentially is we want to say, let's start with state. Even better actually, we'll say binding. Okay, and then we'll say the variable will be called recipe title, okay? It'll be of type string. And we're going to pass it into it, okay? We're going to pass our state variable into this when we use this, okay? Okay. That'll go here. That'll go right here. And this one will say name your recipe. Okay, let's click resume. So we can just come here and say for this one, add. We'll say temporary var object is going to be equal to a. Actually, we'll just say it's equal to nothing for now. And then when we run this, we'll need to pass in temporary object. Okay, so we just had some issues compiling and building because this sheet actually was accidentally in the wrong spot. We needed to put it above the have modal view line. So it should say sheet and then the whole sheet with the image picker, and then the sheet with the review sheet, and then the have modal. That's what it should look like. And the content of this sheet with show review sheet is actually going to be this new thing we're creating called the modify recipe post. That's what we're going to be using. So I'm going to copy that, paste it. Okay, and that is going to actually be expecting. So we had an issue here trying to preview it. That's because what we'll do is we'll just use a constant for now. We're just going to make it say ABC. Okay. That lets us. We're going to get rid of this. We don't need that either. So that's going to let us at least preview. That lets this preview area work now. Okay, but then what I can do is I can go back here, and this is going to be asking for the same thing. So it's going to say if you're going to use, let's save it and run it. And essentially it's going to say, look, if you're going to use modify recipe post, you need to designate the proper parameters as well. So these are the parameters we need. We need a recipe title, okay, or a bindable object that will be passed inwards. So what we'll pass in as the bindable object is going to actually be this right here. It's going to be new recipe title. Okay. So if I save it and run it, that should work actually. It should like that. And what we'll find is that the issue here is that it just wanted to say self dot, okay? We save it and we run it, it'll run successfully. And so while that's going, let's go ahead and look back at the modify recipe post page so we can keep building this guy and keep moving right along, all right? So here's what we got. We go to the plus, hit submit recipe, boom, good to go, okay? So I can even show that worked because I can write, this will be a good recipe. That's my title. I mean, it shouldn't be my title, but and I'll get rid of this. It's still here because this object is all bound inside of the new post view. So if I come here and say, oh, wait a second, now I'm ready to really submit it. It's still there because that state variable is saved somewhere inside this one, and it just keeps getting passed back and forth, okay? So let's clean this up a little bit. Let's go ahead and make this. This is probably not as what we really want. We want maybe 200 at least. We'll give this a padding. Okay. Say give it a description. Name your, let's say, masterpiece. Give it a description. And then probably underneath it is where we'll start putting the steps and stuff, okay? So right here, we will do a, I think it might be best if we actually do a list, okay? And that list, inside of it, we're going to do a for each, okay? And so this for each, actually, the way we're going to do is we're actually going to pull it from something I have been working on the side, okay? You can find the exact tutorial for this. You can find it in on another set of series. I think it should be under the intermediate series, where I talk about how to create a drag and drop list, okay? So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a list. And just for now, I'm going to take this at recipe state steps and editing list. I'm going to take those items and I'm going to bring them up here as well, okay? I'm just going to put those there for now. And this will be replaced with the actual recipe post that's going to be passed in, okay? And then we will also take, we'll take the list itself right here, okay, up until here. And we'll talk about what these are, okay? What problems on which copy and paste. So this recipe steps is what's being used to populate the list, okay? And then the editing list is what's being used to determine whether or not we can edit the actual list that we just copied in, okay? So let's talk about the next piece in here. You need to copy two last pieces, okay? I'm going to copy those in, put them down here. And so what we have here is a list that's going to be based off of the recipe steps, and what it's doing is it's creating each one, and I have this onMove function and onDelete function, and what that's going to let us do is populate, you'll see, it's going to populate these steps, these temporary placeholder steps, and we're going to be able to move and modify that list, and it's going to be modifying the array as well. Okay, so right here, try again. Great, so you'll see we have this list now, okay? And we're going to clean it up a little more, but this will be the list of steps, so I'll be able to go like this. I'll be able to modify that list, okay? And similarly, we'll be doing the same thing for the ingredients. So this will be your last chance to do any modifications. And then at the very end, you'll have a submit button, okay?
All right, and before we consider ourselves at a stopping point, let's just do a couple more things. So let's continue to clean up and modify this recipe post page. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is this list. I'm just going to minimize it for a second. I'm going to give it, first I'm going to put it in H stack, okay? And I'm going to put two things in this H stack now. I'm going to duplicate this list, okay? And that's the first one, that's the second one. I'm going to create this variable editing list. I'm going to make it say editing ingredients, okay? And then this one is going to say editing ingredients. Then I'm going to make another one called editing steps. Okay, and then this one is going to say, same principle, it'll say editing steps. Okay, then see editing steps. There we go. Now that one says editing steps. And then from there we need to do the same thing in here. Editing. This one will say ingredients. Okay, and then I'm gonna leave that alone for a second. This one's gonna say editing steps as well. Okay. And so now the next thing I'm going to do is, realistically, I shouldn't actually have, the more that I'm thinking about this, I should probably not have this recipe title, recipe steps, or any of that really. What I should have is I should have it should be a binding variable, and the variable should be a var. It should be a recipe. Let's say binding recipe post. It's going to be of type recipe post. Okay. And then when I go here, really what we should be running through is, let's just say name your masterpiece. And this will be recipe post dot, and then it'll be, sorry, binding recipe post dot title. Okay. That's what that should say, and then this one should say dot description. Okay, and then when you look further down here, this one should be same principle. It should be binding recipe post dot see. This one should be ingredients. Okay, we probably don't need that. So, and then the next one, it's going to say this ingredient, and this ingredient dot, and then we'll probably put the description, or actually let's look at our structs again. It's been a while since we looked at this one. So an ingredient, we'll put the name for now. Just for now, let's write name. Okay, and then this one will be same principle. It'll say right here. Oops, sorry about that. Looks like I modified these actually in the backwards order. So okay, so this one should say, this one says ingredients, ingredients, ingredient. Okay, and then this one is going to say, oh yes, that's perfect. This one's going to say steps, okay, and this step, dot description. Okay, and then let's see. The next thing we need to do is, we'll look down here. So recipe steps, this one will say dot steps. Okay, and then this one will say same principle, and then editing steps. And then I'm going to actually just straight up get rid of that. Okay, let's look to make sure we're not missing any other crucial pieces of information here. So we got binding recipe post dot ingredients. Okay, and it's saying that ingredients. So it's what it's complaining about is saying each ingredient does not conform to hashable, but it should be okay because we actually have we need to do .id. That's what it's missing. So we'll say .id because these are identifiable objects. Okay, and so what we'll do now is we need to make sure that these move and delete functions are able to understand. They're able to understand essentially which one is being modified at the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to say that actually we don't even, yeah, we'll do that. We'll say add state, and then var modifying first enum. Well, actually, if we go back to where we have this new post view, if you remember, I think we created this enum up here, step or ingredient. So I'm actually going to save that. I'm going to bring it out into structs, enums, and classes. I'm going to take that out here. Okay, we can actually reuse that. So I'm going to go to the modify, and I'll say at state, say ingredient, and say type. List type equals ingredient dot ingredient. Okay, let's make sure we got that right. So we'll go to structs and then classes. Yeah, that's exactly it. So we'll make it start out by saying ingredient, okay? And then right when it realizes that it's going to start editing, we'll say, where we had editing ingredients, we'll make this one say list type self.list type is equal to dot ingredient. Okay. And then the other one we'll say is equal to dot step. Okay, so we've got editing steps. Make sure all those match up. All those do look good now. Okay, so now we're going to look at right here. We'll say if list type equals dot step. Okay. Then we'll do that. And we'll say else. The only other option is that it's ingredients. And so we'll say dot ingredients. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing. Do the same thing here, realistically. So here, same principle. We'll grab all that, save it, put it inside step, put it inside ingredient over here, ingredient. Okay, I'll save it. Now I will save and run. So let's see what we got now. More than likely, we might have a layout issue when it comes to those two lists going side by side, but it did give us a failure here. Let's see what the failure was. Okay. So it doesn't like the fact that we moved that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it where it was. I'm going to keep it in the new post page, and I'm just going to get rid of it in the structs and in nums. Okay. You know what it is? That's actually not the problem either. So the problem is I'm going to go back to structs and nums and I'll put it back there. It actually was completely okay with that. So I'm going to leave that there. But what I'm going to do, if you remember, technically inside the new post view, we set up the modify recipe post, and what we were supposed to actually pass in was not recipe title. If you remember, what we were supposed to pass in was, it should ask us for it. There we go. Binding recipe post, and we should be passing in technically, so we actually find ourselves in a bit of a quagmire here because we've never actually set up a binding recipe post so far. So that's a really interesting place to find ourselves, and it's a good thing we can fix right now, okay? It's going to take an extra second, though. It's definitely going to take a few minutes. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to say everywhere we had steps, everywhere we had ingredients, recipe title, all those items now, make sure we don't have them anywhere else as well or anything similar. We actually need to take all those and store them now into, so we need to store them into a bindable recipe post. State var new recipe post is going to be equal to recipe post. Okay, we don't need to give it a brand. We don't need to declare a UUID for it. I can pick a new one. And we're going to start off with the title of nothing. Steps are going to be blank. Ingredients will be blank. Posting user will, no matter what, posting user is going to be env. Well, we're going to have to leave it blank for now, actually. We'll just leave it like that for now. Okay, and the description will be blank. The number of likes will be 0, and the image will be image system name, whatever. That's fine. And the idea is that we actually need to pass this new recipe post down here. So let's say new recipe post. But the real thing, so this is going to work now. I'm going to save it. I'm going to run it. But now new recipe post is not actually carrying any of the data that we've been working on while creating this whole thing. So what we really need to do is we need to find every single place that we used any of, okay, anywhere we use this, anywhere we use this, and anywhere we use this, okay? So let's go find everywhere we use those. So steps, we did not use it there or there. So we'll say steps.count, okay? So from now on, we don't want it to say steps, we want it to be, okay, so steps, let's find steps again. We want it to be new recipe, so right there. New recipe post dot steps, okay? Because we're referring to the steps that's inside of that. And eventually we're going to get rid of the steps array that we had, that standalone steps array. New recipe post dot steps. Okay, try the next one. Same principle. Okay, new recipe post dot steps. Okay. And let's see if there's any more. Clear page. Clear page. Realistically, we can actually just go through here and just say new recipe post equals recipe. Okay. Do this again. Just say we're essentially creating an empty one again. So there we go. Let's see if we had steps anywhere else. And so now we actually don't need to use this recipe post at all anymore because we're already going to be ready to go. We'll just say let this recipe post equal new recipe post. Okay. And that should be it. We should have actually just finished clearing out every time we used steps like that. Okay, and so that one was good. That one's okay. We already took care of that actually. It just hasn't refreshed. I'm just cleaning that up, okay? I'm going to go back to the top and we're going to do the same thing one more time with ingredients, okay? So everywhere we saw ingredients, we're going to have to make it say new recipe post dot ingredients. So we're going to go here. It'll likely be in all the same spots actually, so add some ingredients. So ingredients dot append. Okay, new recipe post, that should be good. Alright, and that should actually take care of that. We're good with that. Let's see if we actually ended up using this anywhere. I don't think we did, so that's okay. Alright, so now I should actually be able to run this, and I should be able to move back and forth between the modify page and the new page. And this actually is a great thing we just did, because this is really going to clean up the code in the long run. So this was a really good thing we did. Okay, and when it finally finished building, we can see that everything gets properly passed. So I'll add an ingredient. I'll say 1 cup of apples. Now just remember that the display that we chose to give on these, when I click this button, we didn't choose to kind of express all the different, like the amount and the unit. We just wrote, show us the item, the name, the apple. But, that's just a matter of changing what we choose to put inside the text, okay? So add a step, we'll say 1, or actually we'll just say chop and peel the apple, the skin off the apple. We'll say chop the apple. Next one we'll say is take the seeds out of the apple and boil for 2 hours. Okay. Now when I click submit recipe, you can see that everything is spaced pretty nicely, actually. So that just about wraps up what I wanted to get done today. Okay, and thank you for watching. In the next video, we'll keep making some progress on this modify screen. And once we finish taking care of this modify screen, we'll just keep moving right along, okay? See you in the next one.